The X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Rob McConnell's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the X-Zone Radio Show or endorsed in any manner by Rob McConnell, Relmar McConnell Media Company, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, its affiliated networks, stations, employees, or advertisers.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and for the next 3 hours, I am your host. I am your guide as together we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X-Zone. It's a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And we come to you Monday through Friday from 11 p.m. Eastern until 2 a.m. Eastern on the X-Zone Broadcast Network and our family of broadcast affiliates right around this beautiful great big globe of ours, as well as on TalkStream Live at www.talkstreamlive.com. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, on all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website at www.xzoneradio.com. My first guest tonight, X-Zone Nation, is Douglas B Stearns. And let me tell you a little bit about Douglas. He's the author of the sci-fi series Harmonic Wars. As a happily married father of 5, he and his wife are also very proud grandparents. DB was born in Reno, Nevada, and moved to Georgetown, Texas, where he stayed and proudly graduated from Georgetown High School. He entered the Air Force on October 4 in 83 and retired at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois, 20 years later. After a short tour overseas as a logistics manager for a contracting company during the Iraq War, DB returned home to St. Louis area and became an IT project manager for a defense contractor. In 2011, he became inspired by a TV series or special on the Great Pyramid of Giza and was fascinated by the advanced engineering built into the pyramid. Let's hear the rest from our very special guest this hour, DB Stearns. And DB, welcome to the X-Zone.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me come on live and talk to you.
Well, it's better than coming on dead and talking to me. Mind you, on this show, anything's possible. DB, what was the fascination with the Great Pyramid of Giza?
Well, there was so much information behind it that was just mind-blowing to me. Mm-hmm. The first is that the Great Pyramid of Giza was supposedly a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu. Sometimes he was known as Cheops.
Right.
Now, did he have an identity crisis? He didn't know who he was? You know, how come this is one of the very few pharaohs that had 2 different names?
Good question.
That was one of the things that really, threw me off. Ramses is known as Ramses, yeah. Akhenaten, King Tut.
Yeah, the rest of them, yeah.
But, Khufu was known by 2 different names. I would submit that maybe it was 2 different people.
Okay, so tell me, where did you watched this special on TV, it excited you, you started asking questions, you started reading books, you started doing the research. Where has your research led you to today after all the years of looking into this fascinating monument?
Well, it led me to look way outside of the confines of just Egypt, and to look for similarities between the different cultures. And what I started finding was this trend that around 10,000 years ago, there could have very possibly been a very highly advanced civilization. And my mind started going wild with the possibilities of, well, what could it look like, and what would they have done, and just the building of the Great Pyramid itself, which is one of the focal points in my book, was beyond belief when you listen to how the historical narrative of how they built it. They used block and tackle and 100,000 people over 22 years to, cut, transport, and place one block every 2 minutes. And that's, from a standpoint of somebody who does process management, it's impossible to maintain that kind of operations tempo for 22 years. It's beyond belief. And when you look also at the fact that some of the granite was cut in Aswan Quarry 500 miles away, how did they move that across the desert? There's a whole bunch of different theories of how they could have done it. People say they used logs and they rolled it across the desert. Well, where did these logs come from in a desert climate? They're not answering the questions logistically of where and how these things would have happened. And as I looked deeper and deeper, I started seeing similarities in the types of materials that were used in these buildings and these construction sites all around the world. And one of the things that was similar was that they all used a very, very hard stone that had a high quartz content.
DB, you and I have to take a short break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. X-Zone Nation, DB Stearns is my special guest. And if you'd like to find out more about DB, his website is, let me see here, harmonicwars.blogspot.com. That's harmonicwars.blogspot.com. And DB and I will be back in 2 minutes as we continue here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. DB Stearns is our special guest, and his website is harmonicwars.blogspot.com. And DB, what was your motivation for writing Harmonic Wars?
Well, I'd have to say primarily it was the Great Pyramid of Giza itself. I was just blown away, as I said before, about all the architecture and the engineering, the massive amount of engineering that went into it. It's beyond compare for all of the other pyramids throughout the world. The Great Pyramid itself is perfectly aligned to the 4 cardinal points of the compass. The problem with that is that the narrative with the historians and Egyptologists is that it was built 4,500 years ago. That's a problem for several reasons. The first part is that if it's aligned with the 4 points of the compass, that's 2,000 years before a compass was invented. And that just, threw me off right there. Also, they knew how the difference between magnetic north and true north, because where the tip of the capstone used to be at, they have identified that it's only about 3 degrees off from true north. And we can't do that today. There's several buildings. I think the Capitol building is one in Washington, D.C., and there's an observatory in Greenwich Village that was also supposed to have been built in that manner, where the center tip point is supposed to touch or point directly to true north, but it's like 9 degrees or more off from true north.
So let me ask you this. Are we looking at extraterrestrials working and building the pyramids, or are we just talking about something that we're finding very often today, lost technology?
I think it's lost technology. And that was the basis for my book, was that Harmonic Wars is based on the civilization that came here and settled in here, and because of a horrific war that broke out between the different factions of the humans, it destroyed the civilization. And what's left now are people here that have forgotten where they came from. But the factions, the warring factions that started, are still among us, and that would really explain a lot of oddities that we find in archaeology. You know, there's a bunch of figurines of men that, when you look at them, that looks like a man in a spacesuit. You know, that looks like a spaceship. This looks like a helicopter. And you can see this throughout the archaeology, and it's not in just one place, Rob. It's all over the world.
That's right.
You know, you can see it in the Mayan culture, in the Incan culture, the Hopi, and then I started seeing these links between all of these sites on different continents and different timelines to the constellation of Orion. The Great Pyramid itself is one of the, it's placed so that it's one of the stars of Orion's belt. Well, the problem with those three pyramids being in that configuration is that 4,500 years ago, those stars would not have been in that configuration. They would have been in a straight line. So in order to see those stars in that configuration with the smaller pyramid off-center slightly, you have to go back 10,000 years. And that's when I started seeing all of these other things fall into place. Göbekli Tepe is Stonehenge times 25 in Turkey. And it's another complex where there's these beautiful stone henges that were perfectly preserved because about 10,000 years ago, whoever created them started covering them up. And we don't know why. We don't know anything about these people. There's no written language, you know, back to them. Same thing with the people who built the Incan sites in Machu Picchu, Pumapunku. There's no written word. Well, why not? Well, if you look at today's society, okay, and you see all of this technology that we have here, okay?
Yes.
How many documents do you have that you shared across the internet, you know, sending stuff back and forth and emails that you didn't print up?
No, tons and tons and tons.
And how many pictures do you have on your telephone that you don't have printed up either?
None. I don't take pictures on my phone.
Oh, okay. But there's a whole lot of people that do.
Yeah, no, what I do with anything that I do is we make copies and we save digital files and we put them in a safe. You know, we've been doing this since the very first show going back 25 years ago.
And so you've got all these digital files.
That's right, yeah.
Now, what happens if there's a supermassive solar flare and it destroys all the electric capability for electricity?
Well, for one thing, we keep our files in lead containers, lead safes, and we also keep a computer system, a full system, in the safe as well. So in case there is an EMF, we still have the ability to use the technology.
But only a few people will have that technology. Only a few people keep that kind of stuff.
Yep.
The vast majority of the population won't have that. And the vast majority of the people also rely on the internet for everything.
Yeah.
I don't need to learn anything. All I got to do is know where to reference it on the internet. I can pull it up on the web. I save it to the cloud. I save this information here.
Well, you see, that's one thing I don't do. I don't use anything that is cloud-based.
Okay.
Nothing at all. You know, we buy our software. We keep the software here. Everything we do is maintained just in case of an EMF.
Very, very wise, because one well-placed EMF
bang
will kill everything in Northern America.
Yep.
Just one.
Yep.
And if you look at it from a terrorist, aspect, it's not going to be one. They're going to do multiples. And you don't even have to have a terrorist type of attack.
All you need is a heavy solar flare.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it'll totally wipe out the capability for electricity to be out there to use.
And we've seen this in the past. What was it? 11 years ago, there was a massive solar flare that took out the power grid in, let's see, it was Ohio, New York, Pennsylvania, here in Ontario.
Yes.
Bang! We were without power for 5 days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's happened before.
Sure.
It could happen again, and it could happen on a global basis and not just a specified, a specific area like that. And when that happens, all your water stops, all your food stops. People really only have enough food for a week.
Most people.
Right. Most people.
Yeah.
Okay. Now there are some, preppers that will go through and they've got food and they've got water to take care of their families for extended amounts of time.
Yep. Not only water but medical supplies.
Yes.
You've got to think ahead. You have to think ahead. And I started thinking ahead during the times of the Cuban Missile Crisis. I was a kid back then. And I started asking questions. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? How am I going to help take care of my mom and dad and my brother? And as I grew older, this was a very important part of what I did, was to plan ahead, take care of my family, make sure that I was able to help others. And there's a fantastic book that is written by Matt Stein, When Technology Fails. It is one of the best books ever written. I suggest anybody who wants to get into emergency preparedness or preparedness of an electromagnetic pulse that has the capability of wiping out all the luxuries that people are used to having at their fingertips. Go to Matt's website, get a copy of that book. It's fascinating. But you have to think ahead. Anybody who doesn't think ahead, and anybody who puts their total faith and trust in modern technology, they're heading for a fall.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree with you. And it's right on for you that you think and have thought like that for quite some time. But most people don't think past the next paycheck.
Exactly.
And they don't have the ability to plan past the next paycheck. But it really doesn't take much to put aside and say, okay, here's a bag of beans, here's some rice, here's some, canned goods, that you put off to the side. It doesn't take much to do that per paycheck. And pretty soon you've got a pretty good store of things just in case things do go south. Yeah. But most people won't do that. And the chaos that's going to ensue is going to be tremendous. All you have to do is go back in time and look at what happened at Hurricane Rita, Hurricane Katrina.
Exactly.
Any of those natural disasters like that. The first thing that happened in Katrina was that there was massive looting and massive rioting. It was chaos, and the chaos is going to be the major problem. And in the case of a supermassive solar flare that destroys all the electronics, you will have pockets that, like yourself, that would be able to survive. The wealthy are certainly going to, be able to continue their lifestyle. They're not going to change. I don't see George Soros or, Bill Gates, losing any sleep over this.
Well, I don't know if Bill Gates wouldn't lose any sleep because he'd be losing a lot of money.
But he's not going to change. His lifestyle is not going to change. George Soros' lifestyle is not going to change. He's going to be able to continue on. And in my book, that's what happened. The upper crust, the factions that got into the fight, the governments continued. And the rest of the people had to basically fend for themselves.
All right, stand by. I've got to take my news break at the bottom of the hour. X-Zone Nation. B Stearns is our very special guest. Interesting topic. It's a real topic. It can happen. It has happened in the past. And it will happen again in the future. The question is, when? And how are you going to be prepared? Remember the Boy Scout motto, be prepared? Hey, listen, I'm anything but rich. But over the years, we've put little things aside. Cans of good, bottles of this, first aid supplies, antiseptic ointments, and the rest of it. It's common sense. It is common sense, whether it's electromagnetic pulse, whether it's a blizzard, an ice storm, anything. Please, 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 Exo Nation, give it some thought and be prepared. I'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. B Stearns is my special guest this hour, X-Zone Nation. His website is harmonicwars.blogspot.com. He's the author of Harmonic Wars, Guardians of the Crystal Skulls. And who were the Guardians of the Crystal Skulls way back when, and what was their function? Why were they created? What do we know about them? I mean, besides the stories that we're all familiar with, thanks to people like Mitchell Hedges.
Well,
and by the way, I said the story with my tongue in cheek.
Okay. First off, my book is science fiction. Okay, so I can take the liberty to play with it some and add in some of this tongue in cheek, kind of folklore of the 13 crystal skulls. The legend of the 13 crystal skulls is that they've been lost, and at the end of times, they're supposed to all be found together again,
right.
And that'll be the big signal that the times are about to end. I wanted to use the legend of the 13 crystal skulls because it fit with the theme that I had of crystal being used throughout this advanced civilization, and so it fit for a couple of reasons. First off, they're made out of quartz, and all of these stone structures, the Great Pyramid of Giza, Pumapunku, Stonehenge, they're all made out of stones with high quartz content, granite, andesite, sarsen stone, etc. And so it just kind of fit. Now, people look at the skulls and they think death and destruction, and I looked at the skulls and decided I was going to turn it into something that was good and positive. So in my book, which is an epic story of good versus evil, and the best examples that I can get for good and evil are angels and demons. So I've got angels and demons in the book, and the forces of the good, the light, provided the skulls to the Mayan as a tool to balance their fight between good and evil. And the Guardians happened to be part of the Mayan ruling council at the time. And I used the actual last known king of the Mayans.
We've got gremlins here. I swear to God we do.
Well, this isn't the first show that I've had gremlins on,
really?
So I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay, great.
I've had some weird things. Before we go, make sure I tell you the story about my computer.
Oh, so, I certainly will now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But where was I? I was talking about the crystal skulls being a gift to fight good versus evil. And so I turned this crystal skull from a symbol of death and destruction into a symbol of hope and salvation.
Right.
Well, God did that as well with the cross. The symbol of the cross itself was a horrible death and destruction, and he turned that as well into a sign of hope and salvation. Now, my book is not a religious book, okay? And I didn't want to write this also in a way that would, lead people astray from their own religion.
Mm-hmm.
So I included portions of my religion in it. But the good people that are in this book are not going to smash themselves with a hammer and say, "Ooh, look, verily, verily, I've hurt myself."
Sure.
They're gonna say and do what normal people do, and there may or may not be a few little 4-letter words when they hit themselves with a hammer. But the evil people are truly evil. One of the readers of my book said, there's no real indication at the end of this book that good is going to win, because the evil is so horrible. And you almost feel sorry for the antagonist, because he's had these horrible things happen to him over and over, and you can see where he's going. The book is best described as Star Wars meets Game of Thrones, but without all the incest. So,
well, that's no fun. That sounds like a boring book then, if there's no incest, no sex orgies, or interspecies, mating. God, what kind of book is it? Don't tell me it's a book that people can actually read and enjoy.
Well, you can read and enjoy it, and I didn't say there wasn't any sex in it.
That's true, you didn't. I assumed that when you said there was no sex, like, in the Game of Thrones. By the way, I love that. I love that series.
I tell you what, it is an amazing series, but sometimes it'll make your eyes water with some of the shocking things that's happened in it. And there are some pretty shocking things that happen in Harmonic Wars, Guardians of the Crystal Skulls. But it's actually a prequel to the bigger story that I've been writing. When I started writing this book, I actually wrote book 2 first, which is going to be named Dimensional Warriors. And as I was going through, this fantastic story just kept falling out in front of me, and I put no limitations as I was writing it, and all these things were happening. And my publisher came back and she said, "Okay, hold on. You're not Stephen King. Your last name's not Sanderson or Crichton or Clancy. Nobody's going to buy or invest themselves into a 1,000-page book."
Oh, wait a second. Hold on. A publicist is telling you this?
Oh, my publisher.
Publisher. Time to get a new publisher, because if the publisher doesn't have faith in you, something's wrong somewhere.
Well, no, she was trying to be realistic and say, okay, look, you're an unknown author, and people aren't going to want to read that. She said, you have to find a way to introduce it or cut it back. Well, the way I wrote it was that there's 5 different storylines that are ongoing all at the same time, and I wrote them all together. So once I'd get to a quitting point at one milestone, I'd go to the next storyline and continue. And so I had 5 storylines that were working together, and so you can't just cut it off.
That's right. But when you watch TV today, that's exactly how they're set up, like Game of Thrones. How many different storylines are coming to you at the same time?
Multiple.
Exactly. Because people are getting bored these days, and people in the media realize this. If we want to keep your interest, we have to change things. And this is why here on this show, I have one guest an hour. Instead of other shows, they have the same guest for 3 hours or a guest for an hour and a half. I'm sorry. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I know that guests, as well as listeners, want change. It's we're in that type of society. Information is instantaneous. Yes. People have learned how to multitask when they're thinking. So you know what? I love what you've done.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to write, because when the battles come out and the armies are approaching each other on the battlefield, I've got the unique perspective that I've got angels and demons falling in beside the armies in their own dimension.
Yep.
The armies don't see this happening, but you can see it from the book's perspective, getting 5 or 6 different perspectives on the same battle. So that was a lot of fun and very challenging to write. And
Well, good for you. Congratulations.
Thank you. It was a big challenge, but like I said, a whole lot of fun to write.
I think you're a visionary. I think that you've seen what the public wants, and you're giving it to the public.
Well, I try.
Yeah. No, I really do believe that people are looking for change, whether it's in the print media, the TV media, or the radio media. And if you don't change to the will of the people, you're destined to fail. And we've seen this with the increase of books being published every month. Right now, on the internet, there are 20,000 new books coming out each and every month.
Yes, and that's another problem with publishing or trying to get out your book, is that first off, it's very difficult to write a completely unique storyline, because somebody's already thought of this, or they've already thought of that. I had written my vision of what the spaceships look like, and when I saw one of the movies in the theater, it's like, well, doggone it, there's my spaceship. There's only so much that you can really do, but you hold on to bits and pieces, and then you work from that perspective and keep moving forward with what you've got. Nobody's going to tell the story like you are anyway. But I didn't want to write the same tired old storyline where, okay, here's the aliens, they're coming in, and they're a bug, or they're this, or they're clashing. So I wrote it very, very different, and there will appear to be some mysticism to this at some level, but it's really not. You're going to have to get through the first 2 books before you can see. I got 4 books planned for this initial storyline, and once that's done, then I'll be able to go into 2 other trilogies that'll follow along with the story as well.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with being a salmon in today's society, and that's going against the current.
Well, I've been doing that as far as I can remember.
You and me, my friend, you and I both.
Sometimes it's worked out good, and sometimes it's worked out not so good.
Yeah, but you see, I look at it that the times it hasn't worked out good, that's a lesson into getting to be successful. So
Absolutely.
many people in today's society, they have a little, something that they're working on fails, they just give up and walk away. You kidding? That was an invaluable lesson that you were being given in order to get to where you want to go. People, just don't give up. Get back up on that horse and keep on going.
Rob, that's exactly right. I could have given up after my first radio show, and I didn't. And the next thing you know, I got another one, and then another one. And here I am talking to you as well. And this has just been a fantastic experience for me to get my name and get my book out there. And I would have never dreamed that, at 50 years old, I'm going to turn around and completely walk away from a very good paying job, with a good promising future, and say, I'm going to write a book. My friends are going, man, are you crazy? What are you doing? You're getting rid of your stuff. You're moving out of your house. You're moving down to Texas again. Are you okay? I'm not gonna hear about you on the news that you committed suicide or something. I said, no, man.
No, they're going to hear about you on the news that you're a success. Because you're following your dream. And in my book, the only difference between a dream and reality is doing it, because the dream is the idea. And making that dream come true is the work that you've put into it to getting there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to follow up on something
Sure.
that I heard in Amanda's news bit just a couple of minutes ago. She was talking about Jupiter.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I actually researched was our own solar system. And, of course, there's this huge asteroid field in between Jupiter and Mars. And I use that as well. But Jupiter itself has some very unique properties with the moons that surround it. The 3 moons, the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, and Ganymede are in a perfect relationship to each other. It's a 4-2-1 relationship. For every one time that Io orbits around Jupiter, Europa is at 2 and Ganymede at 4. So in other words, Ganymede goes around Jupiter once, and Europa will go around it twice, and Io will go around it 4 times. And that's a Laplace resonance. There's a specific name for that resonance that this creates. And if you go to Wikipedia and look at it, you can see how the moons orbit around Jupiter. And I'm looking at it from a mechanical standpoint, and I said, well, geez, that looks like some kind of a pump.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder, what are the gravitational effects on Jupiter? What's happening there? What kind of energies are being transferred? There's a resonance there. What is it being used for? And I think that in our past, we had a much better understanding of sound technology than we do today.
Definitely. I agree with you 100%. Listen, we're going to take our break now, but when we come back, we'll have about 4 minutes. I'd like to hear about the computer that you were talking about earlier tonight.
Okay.
All right. DB, stand by. Great having you with us. I love the way you think, my man.
Thank you, sir.
Exonation, DB Stearns is our guest. HarmonicWars.blogspot.com, and DB and I will be back on the other side of this break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Don't go away. Welcome back, everyone. DB Stearns is our special guest. Now, to find out more about DB, visit his blog spot, harmonicwars.blogspot.com, and DB is the author of what I believe is a very interesting and, it sounds like a super book. It's called Harmonic Wars, Guardians of the Crystal Skulls. First of all, DB, thanks so much for joining us. Great having you here with us. But tell me about the computer.
Well, thanks again for inviting me onto your show. When I was first introducing the demons and the angels, I had to, of course, envision what they're going to look like and what they're going to do,
Yep.
and I had a real fun time building the characters for the angels, and then I got to the demons. And I started this really dark path I was writing, and it was very, very dark, and it just felt oppressive. And as I was writing it, my MacBook just died.
Oh, no.
And I was like, oh, man, that's bad,
Yeah.
And so I took it to the shop, and I went back and pulled a computer out of the storage shed and said, okay, let's get this one booted back up. And it was a PC. And so I got it working and called back to my publisher and I said, okay, send me the last 2 chapters. I've got my backups here and I can, recreate what I had. And it took me about a week. And I got back to writing that chapter and that part where I was introducing the demon. And as I continued down that path, I got to the same exact point, and a power supply on the second computer died.
Whoa.
And that kind of freaked me out. And so I called Apple and I said, hey, what's the deal on my MacBook? And he said, well, the internal power supply died on your MacBook, and we've got to order the part for that. And I'm like, what are the chances that that happened? And I started looking around. I was going, okay, what are you telling me here?
Hey, listen, DB, the time has come when you and I must say so long for now. I want to thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back on in the future. Let us know how your book is doing. And congratulations. I really think you've got a winner here.
Well, thank you very much. And y'all look for me on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. I'm on all of them.
All right, DB, take care of yourself now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, Exo Nation, I'm going to take a commercial break here with the news at the top of the hour, and we will return investigating more aspects of the world of the paranormal and the science of parapsychology right here in the Exo from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be back.